working in the evenings and working weekends and over delivering and networking well and doing everything perfectly, it's going to take me probably 5 years to get to superintendent. And then when I worked out the pay increase to superintendent, it was still only a bottom rate superintendent. It was still only sort of £400 or £500 a month. And I thought, there's easier ways to earn money. And I remember speaking to my superintendent, and he said to me, none of us are happy doing this. He said, we're all just pension chasing. And I thought, it's not worth it. Like, it's just not worth being miserable for that long to achieve that little.
Thanks ever so much for agreeing to be interviewed on the Blue Light Livers podcast. It is brilliant to connect with you. And obviously we met a little pre-COVID, actually, didn't we? Met a little while back at I was invited to an event that Alex was running, Alex Seery was running, from Shifts to Success, and it was great to meet you and have a chance to catch up over lunch and just understand what it was that you were doing at the time as well. But my goodness me, you've gone on to do some amazing things. So thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So should we talk just briefly? We'll talk about your career history in due course, but if we can just talk about what it is that you're doing now, just briefly, and then we'll go into more detail, obviously, as the episode goes on.
Yeah, so today I'm the director. I run a company called Lilac James. We're digital marketing specialists. We specialize in search engine optimization, social media advertising, and Google advertising. So we sort of help businesses grow their marketing, their visibility, and ultimately sort of make more sales and make more money.
Brilliant. Wow. So what were you doing in policing? Because people might think that listen to this and think, well, how on earth have you moved into that? So what was your background in policing, and what's a bit of your career history?
So, I mean, I wanted to join the police from when I was really young, and I suppose had a sort of childish desire to just have a job where I was like a Labrador, just outside running around, and policing seemed like something that it was that or the military. And I think because I met my partner really, I was, she's my wife now, but I met her when I was 17. So going to join the military and being posted all around the country for basic training, and then not having control over your life so much didn't appeal. So it sort of ended up being policing. So I went traveling, and then joined when I was 20. Spent a couple of years on response, then realized sort of what I enjoyed doing was locking up the more serious villains rather than going after the shoplifters and common assaults and all this other sort of stuff you get involved in response. So I went into CID, sort of progressed through CID, and then an opportunity came up, and I was asked by the chief inspector. She said, can you just fill in for 2 months acting up on a position on shift, because the sergeant there's broke his ankle, and we need somebody to go, and the team's crimes are in a right shit state. So from CID you can go in and sort it out. And my inspector said to me, you will never be back in CID. I said, what are you talking about? It's a 2-month placement. He was like, no, you won't. And he turned out to be right. I sort of ended up getting promoted from there, and sort of then went through a few proactive teams, neighborhoods, burglary squads, what we called impact teams, and then got promoted to DI, where I sort of did main office CID. Then I went into intel specialism, and then into covert policing, and then got promoted to chief inspector. And that's when my police career started to sort of, I realized that actually I might have to start exploring other options.
So why was that, Jamie? What was it that was actually into too much?
Yeah, I think
potentially, but see, it was a stellar career. It was something that you'd wanted to do for a long period of time. Obviously, you progressed, fairly rapidly. And so, what was the tipping point then? What was it that made you start to not be the career that you hoped it would be?
I think when I went into covert policing, I came out sort of about 3 years later, and when you're in covert, you're sort of in this little bubble. And I came out, and I sort of so much had changed. Like so much had changed in that 3 years. Now So
obviously, it's a real sort of stellar career for you, and it was you know, you'd really progressed pretty quickly, and it was something that you'd always wanted to do, Jamie. So, you know, at what point was it then that you started to think that this might not be the career for you?
Yeah, well, I was in covert, and I had the time of my life in there, but you become invisible because you're meant to, when you're in a position like that. Very few people know the good work that you're doing. So I only wanted it to be a short stint because I was still sort of career minded. So I decided, you know, that there was a lot of, I suppose I really wanted to change things for the better when I was in there. And I thought, well, actually, I've been in quite an advanced DI role, done really well for 3 years. So the natural progression either felt like going to a regional or national unit or promotion. And I toyed with some of the jobs in the regional units, and I was really interested in one job that would have taken me down a different path, but he said, if you value your marriage, don't go for it. Because I asked him why he's leaving, and he said, well, because, you know, I'm on the verge of divorce, basically. He said, you'll be all over the country, phone calls in the middle of the night, a lot of time away. So I thought, you know, high on my values list is my family life and my kids and my wife and things. So I decided not to go for that and decided to go for promotion. And I knew that I had to come out of covert to get promoted, because my two predecessors had both tried to get promoted from within the department, and I'd spoken to them both. And they'd both said that, you know, the board, they just don't understand your evidence. They don't understand the risk you're managing. They think you're too specialized, etc. You need to come out and you need to get work in policy teams and all this sort of rubbish. So I came out and I got a temporary promotion position. Now, hilariously, I'd never worked in vulnerability in my whole career. You know, it just wasn't, it's not my cup of tea. It's horrendously important, that kind of work, but it just didn't suit how I policed and, you know, what I was interested in and things. I was more going after the serious organized villains and county lines and burglars and this sort of thing. That was always my bag. And they put me in what was called PvP. And of course, I didn't know what any of the forms were called. I didn't know what any of the departments did, other than occasionally picking up the phone to them. But that said, I was still, you know, I still really wanted to change things. And I just felt, as a chief inspector, that you couldn't, you're powerless. You're just caught in the meat grinder, and you're stuck in the middle. And, you know, awful policies come in from all over the place, and you sort of point out, this is an awful policy, this is going to cause an awful lot of you know, it's going to slow things down, it's going to cause inefficiency, unnecessary bureaucracy, and people will go, don't care, do it, you know, implement it. And then I just found that I was then responsible for implementing the bullshit that was coming over the hill rather than stopping it. And it drove me mad. And you know, my days were spent just going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, and I had these tiny little slithers of white free time in my diary every week, where I was expected to do this like massive amount of workload. Which is why people at that rank, certainly in the force I was from, spend a lot of time working evenings and weekends. And I just thought, well, for the extra 50 quid a month that's in my pay packet, that's not worth it. Because going from a top rate inspector to a bottom rate chief inspector is about 50 quid a month. And then I run the maths, and I was like, well, actually, if I'm doing this for the money, I'm doing it for the wrong reason. So then what are you doing it for? And it's like, well, because the job satisfaction isn't there. The job satisfaction is far better as an inspector. Work-life balance is far better as an inspector. So going for chief inspector then made no logical sense in my head. And then it was like, well, okay, what about superintendent? So surely the only purpose of chief inspector is maybe as a stepping stone to get to superintendent. And I sort of rationalized, actually, I was quite young. I think I was 33 at the time. So I sort of thought, if I really put my nose to the grindstone and absolutely worked my bollocks off and joined the, you know, working in the evenings and working weekends and over delivering and, you know, networking well and doing everything perfectly, it's going to take me probably 5 years to get to superintendent. And then when I worked out the pay increase to superintendent, it was still only a bottom rate superintendent. It was still only sort of £400 or £500 a month. And I thought, there's easier ways to, to earn money. And I remember speaking to my superintendent, and he said to me, none of us are happy doing this. He said, we're all just pension chasing. And I thought, it's not worth it. Like, it's just not worth being miserable for that long to achieve that little. And at the time, I was working part-time in the business in Lilac James. It was set up by my mum. The business went through a bit of a rough patch. A few people left in quick succession through just in businesses, people leave, they move on. And
yeah, absolutely.
We lost two important people within a month. And so I stepped in to sort of shore up the business. And I think from the top of the inspector pay scale to the top of the chief inspector pay scale, it was a pay rise of about £3,500. And we made a sale that week that was worth about £3,500 to £5,000. And I just thought, well, if money is your goal, then business is clearly the route to go down. If job satisfaction is what's driving you, then chief inspector, superintendent plus all the chief super and all that isn't for you, because you're not cut out to just sit in meetings all day. You're too opinionated and outspoken to swim in those circles. You're just going to piss people off, and you're going to get your career blocked. So I've seen it happen to lots and lots of people who surely in organizations you want people to express their opinion and avoid that groupthink and stuff, but I just found in the police it just wasn't particularly welcomed. And there was some really good people that I just saw year after year after year failing to progress, not because they weren't yes men, basically. And I just thought, I can't, if I don't jump and take a risk. I just feared that I'd be 50, 60 years old thinking, I just wish I had a bigger set of bollocks when I was in my 30s. Basically. Whereas if I leave and I fail, at least I've tried. At least I can pat myself on the back and say, you gave it a go. It might not have worked out the way that you wanted, but you at least give it a go, because business isn't all sunshine and rainbows. It's tough. It's a grind. There is huge rewards to be had, but there's also big risks. But you can design your business around your lifestyle. Like, when there's nobody available to pick up the kids, I just leave and go pick up the kids, and then I do dinner, and then in the evening, if I've got work that I need to get done, I just do it in the evening. Like, I worked this Sunday because on Friday, I just felt really tired. I felt really, really tired on Friday. I had some DIY that I needed to sort out. So I just said, I'm going to have today off, and I'm going to sort my DIY out. I'm going to have a restful day. The kids are going to be at school. I'm going to go for a nice long walk. And I'll catch up Sunday. Absolutely fine. You've got so much control over your life.
Absolutely.
And that's what
it is all about, that control, really, isn't it?
It's so good for your, because in my penultimate posting in the police, I just felt suffocated, absolutely suffocated by the organizational culture, by just bosses that are just nice enough people. I'd go out for a drink with them. I'd be perfectly nice and polite to them if I see them. They are nice, good people, but they crushed the departments that they operated with, just so they could look good one step up the rank, and their priorities were just all wrong. And I clashed with them so much because of it. Because I'd say, look, my team need to go home. Well, they can't. They've got X, Y, and Z to do. Well, they need to go home because they are exhausted and they've worked X amount this week. Well, that's what it's like in CID. No, it's not. Because if you break these people, then there's no one to pick up any of the work. And I just have these issues all the time. But my last posting that I had, actually had a lot of, this is what made it really difficult, because I actually had a lot of freedom. I was in charge of county lines, organised crime, and prolific offenders, and I had 3 teams underneath me, 3 great sergeants, really good teams of PCs. It wasn't perfect by any means, by any stretch. I didn't have the control or the resources that I needed to really go and smash the objectives that I wanted. But my boss was great. He, perfectly nice guy. My superintendent was fantastic. He was one of the few superintendents in the force that I think, was a real leader, had real high quality leadership values, who really, really cared about his teams. And that did make the decision a little bit harder, but ultimately I was a bit bored. I was unchallenged. I'd been a DI for 7 years when I left. And I just I'd worked in higher risk environments. So it's kind of like if you were playing in the Premier League and then you go down to Division 2, a footballer in that environment would be a little bit sort of like, just cruising. And that's where I was. And I didn't want to cruise. I was too young to cruise. So I took the decision to jump, and it was scary as hell, but I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get through that in a sec. But I'm really interested in that interim period, Jamie, where you were working effectively 2 jobs, if you like, 2 careers, and following 2 career paths. So you were trying to maintain, obviously, what's going on at work and the responsibilities that you've got there, and you were also obviously developing Lilac James as well, and some the work that you're doing also that, plus young family as well. So how did you manage all that, and how long did you do that for before you made the decision to jump?
So I started working part-time in the business when I was in the covert team, and I condensed my hours. So I did 4 days, 4 10-hour days. I think I had a Thursday off every week, and that was the day that I would jump into the business. And then I would maybe do a little bit sometimes in the evenings, sometimes at the weekends, but it wasn't too onerous, to be honest. The difficulty was trying to switch your brain almost between 2 modes. You had like your police mode and your police risk management brain, and then you had your business brain, and which has to be like a bit more creative. And I'd be working in the office in the business and writing some sort of marketing campaign or doing some business development strategy, and my phone would go, and I'd look down and I'd think, oh, here we go. And they'd be like, boss, are you ready for this? And they'd give me the sensitive intel, which was generally really high risk, and and it just throw your brain completely. So it was difficult. I didn't make as much progress as I would have liked because of all of that, because it was sort of the risk that the team were managing was hard to sort of put out of your mind. But I initially really wanted to leave in February 2020. When did I stepped down from chief inspector in January 2019, and even at that point I was still committed to my police career. I still wanted to pursue my police career at that time, but I said to the organization, I want a good work-life balance, and I want to be frontline. I want to, get my teeth stuck in again. And I said, can you post me close to home? Now I've got 2 police stations, operational police stations within 10 miles of my home address, and they post me to the one that's 35 miles away. And it was just sort of, it just felt like a dick move, a real spiteful move on their part. And they knew what they were doing. They were saying, fine, you turn your back on chief inspector, tell us you're not interested in joining our club, we'll do this to you. And they only moved me out of that station when I submitted a fairness at work application, and I was literally moved within about 2 weeks. So it, shows. But I initially wanted to leave in February 2020, so about a year after stepping down, where I sort of come to the conclusion, like I've just grown apart from policing at the moment. And then COVID was coming over the hill. So I thought I'll just keep my powder dry. I'll see what happens with this pandemic. And before you knew it, we're in lockdowns, and, the business really struggled because we had clients who just had to stop trading. And of course, if they stop trading, they don't need any marketing, because even if we gave them 1,000 customers, they couldn't service one. So yeah, the transition was fine. There were some other things I had to do for my own safety net, if you like, because like I said, I'm very family conscious. So one of the things I did is I saved a lot of money. I saved what I call a cash buffer. So I just calculated what I need to, because obviously my wife works. So I calculated what I need to earn in order for us to live our current lifestyle. And then I just saved 6 months of whatever that amount is. So if the business folds tomorrow, I know, I mean, now it's a lot more than 6 months because the business has done well. But if the business folded tomorrow and every single client stopped paying their invoices, I know that from savings, I can survive for 6 months or 6 months then, more now. And that was just a nice place to be. It just gives you a little bit of I guess emotional space. You're not sort of
absolutely.
feeling like you're as terrified of things going wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
And rejoining's always, it's always an option for people out there. The police isn't going anywhere, and it always will need good people. Experience more than anything at the moment, I think, is a horrendous problem that they've got. Because people such as myself and other people of my sort of length of service, I think I did 16 years in the end, are leaving to find other opportunities. So it's always going to be an opportunity to go back, but there is, as you all know, there is so much out there for people with the skill sets of cops.
Yeah, no, there is definitely, and it's just being able to evidence in such a way that it's understood by employers, basically, and show that the skills and experience that you've got can map across. So they're absolutely right. And were you self-taught? Did you how did you get to that point? Were there additional courses or any training that you did, or do you get any support? How did that work?
Yeah, so I January 2019, I stepped down. At that point, I realized, right, I want to do more with the business, because at that point, I knew that I wasn't going to get too much more self-development in the police, because I'd essentially put a stop to the promotion, and I'd already worked in specialist units, and I decided that I didn't want to go to the regional or national. So I knew that I was going to be in a place where I wasn't going to be getting that much self-development, personal development. So I started looking at business training, and I come across some right scam artists when I was looking in that world. I went to an event down in London that was just a huge pitch fest. It was sold as a business training event, and it wasn't. It was just trying to get people who can't afford things to pay for really expensive courses that are terrible. And I eventually found a company called Shift to Success, which is run by Alex Seery, who's in your group. And I was mega skeptical of Alex and his business before I joined it. So I did so much research. I mean, I read his book. I researched not just him, but also all the mentors on the program and the people connected with the business, and just to check that it was legit. And I went to, he used to call it a quick start day. It was so I went to one of those, saw the presentation, and it was, I think at the time, it was about £3,600 for for a year's worth of business training, coaching, education, etc. And at the time, that felt so expensive. That felt like so expensive. In hindsight, it's absolutely cheap as chips. Absolutely cheap as chips. Because what I rationalized then when I was deciding whether to make that investment in myself and the business was, I need to secure one customer from this course. That's all I need to do. From all of this knowledge and support and mentorship, I need to make one sale. Like I can do that, and I can cover costs. 2 sales, I'm at 100% return on investment. And since I recently paid, I think £680 for 3 hours of one-to-one training on a really niche part of Facebook advertising. 3 hours. And with the Shift to Success course, I got a online learning portal, reading resources, I think 2 month. Well, back then it was slightly different. It's all remote and online now, but today you get like 2 webinars a month. You have really specific business mentors, like some are help you design out your products, others help you with sales, others help you generate and build your ideas or plan your lifestyle so that you can build the business. It was really, really good. And we made our return on investment back within a week, because we sat down with Alex and we had a one-to-one, and we spoke through the problems in the business, what we wanted to achieve. And back then the business, we were really, really busy, but we just weren't that profitable. And he just sort of helped us understand that that was a pricing issue, that actually we were providing so much more value than what we were charging out. So he helped us understand that we needed to raise our prices and also work out the strategy for how you're going to do that whilst maintaining high sort of return on investment and value for your clients. Because naturally nobody's going to pay high price. I mean, digital marketing industry is quite brutal. If you're not delivering, they'd switch you off straight. You know, it's just it's like show your value or sayonara. You know, it's you're gone. So yeah, he helped us work through that, and we raised prices, I think, by 10 or 20% across the board, all existing customers and then new business as well. And every single client bar one said yes. And so that was it. We'd covered the cost of the course with one decision in 1 week. And this is, you know, I see people going through the course now, loads of cops. So I coach on the course now. So I think I joined in, like I said, I think it was 2019. 3 years later, you know, this business we're turning over, we employ 4 people, we turn over about 400,000 pounds revenue. And he's brought me back in as a coach to sort of help other cops achieve the same results and you know, go through, because they were going to be going through exactly what I went through. And we see it all the time. We see, you know, how cops are starting up businesses, but it does take some bravery. It really does, because you got to invest in yourself, and then it's not just the investment in the training. You then might have to buy a website. You might have to pay someone to do your website. You might have to pay someone for logos. So there are other investments as well. But the reality is, you know, cops are going from not even having an idea. I was speaking to a friend of mine. I've just paid him £12,000 across the year to provide a load of video content for the business, on sort of like a monthly retainer, but over a 12-month contract. And you know, this guy's made £30,000-40,000 this year. And when he joined, he didn't even have an idea. He didn't even like know what type of business he wanted to start. So yeah, that's what I did. And since then, it's been, you know, it's been just keeping that education going. Like I said, I've just paid 700 quid nearly for 3 hours of training, coming up soon. So you do have to keep up the investment in yourself, particularly
absolutely
in business, because if you're not, like I said, if you're not performing, you're not earning.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, and that's really helpful. Actually, the context there as well is superb, and you know, that skepticism and that is just very, very natural. But it's lovely to hear the story and how you've actually got through that, and that return on investment as well. That's brilliant, Jamie. That's really, really impressive. So the right point for you in terms of that decision where you just go, this is it, and you hand in your notice. How did you feel at that point? And, you know, because obviously you'd been in for a while, and, you know, you'd made the decision to go, you had all the right reasons, you built everything up on the side, you know, you knew financially you had that 6 month buffer as well. So it's a really good point. But how do you actually feel at that point when you're thinking, right, today I'm going to hand my notice?
Great. Once the decision was made, it was easy. Even before I'd actually handed over my resignation letter, you know, that was all, it was all straightforward. Once my mind was made up, it was liberating. It was absolutely liberating. I just started to feel a little bit claustrophobic and a little bit suffocated by it all. You know, the fact that you can't express your opinions so freely. You know, I had an ex chief superintendent who's just retired, reach out to me and we were just communicating on WhatsApp. And I was really surprised that he sort of had the same feelings as I did around sort of being a little bit suffocated and, not being able to just be yourself, because, you're always worried if somebody's going to get offended about something and report you, and then you're going to have PSD breathing down your neck and crawling through all of your communications. And, that intrusion on your life was really nice to have that lifted. It was really, really nice to have that lifted. But yeah, making the decision, like, strategically, like, the business was in a good place. It was a case where we looked back at the finances and we thought, well, actually, there's not been a month in the last 12 months since the lockdowns that we couldn't afford the wage that I need to take out of the business. I then had a 6-month cash buffer. So even if, the economy tanked and the business started not to do very well, or whatever, there was some sort of crisis, I could survive 6 months, which is long enough to go get a job somewhere, or rejoin if that's what I decided to do. So it was kind of like I hit a point where it was like, what's your excuse? What are you waiting for? You've got no excuses because you've managed all of the risk around this. And then it was like, well, yeah, what are you waiting for? Like, you can kick the can down the road for another 12 months and you might have, 9-12 months cash buffer, but what? So it's just like, just got I read a book by Richard Branson, and he said a lot of business decisions come down to a moment where you go, fuck it, let's do it. And that's ultimately what it was. There was no smoking gun, there was nothing like that. It was just like, what are you waiting for? Fuck it, let's do it. So yeah, just went for it.
Yeah, great stuff. A day in the life. So the sort of stuff that you do on a daily basis, or over a period of a few days. So how does your day look like now for those that think, actually, I've got a real interest in this, either through the marketing or through SEO or whatever it might be? How does your day look, Jamie?
Well, haven't set an alarm since I left the police, which is amazing. I keep that going for as long as I can. My natural body clock wakes me up at about 7. So I get up at about 7. I'm not one of these hustle monster business people that says get up at 4 and all of that, go meditate and work out and write your journal and all that rubbish. Don't do any of that. So I wake up at 7 and I go downstairs and annoy the children, make sure, and I do the school run. So generally by this point, because my wife, she starts work earlier than I do, she starts work before the school run, so I have to do the school run. So get the kids all sorted, get them to school, get into the office about 8:45, and then we just start working through the client delivery, the project workload, the meetings that we've sort of got for the day. Generally I'll go home sort of 5, probably, not much later, and then just do what I've always done in the evenings, do my hobbies, spend time with the family, have dinner with the family every night. And that is the great thing. I'm always home for dinner. I'm always there in the mornings. I have every weekend off. If I need to take time to do something in the day, I can just take time to do something in the day. I've got so much more freedom and flexibility around my life now. So I decided to work Sunday. I probably did about 6 hours on Sunday, but that was my decision. I could have decided to go rock climbing with the kids, but there's some stuff that I wanted to do. And it is on you. That's the thing with business. It is on you. If you're not getting up and doing the stuff, pushing, moving the needle, then it doesn't happen. So whereas in the police, a lot of people just turn up and coast through and their paycheck still comes through. Whereas if I stop delivering, if I stop learning and improving and etc., if I stop doing our own marketing to develop new clients, then the needle stops moving. So there is a little bit of pressure in that respect.
Are there any sort of baseline courses, if you like. So if people might have a bit of an interest in, SEO, we talked really briefly about what SEO is and maybe Google ads, Facebook ads, those sort of things. But if people have a bit of an interest in that, are there any baseline courses that you or anything you sort of point people in a direction or to find out more?
Yeah, I mean, so for Facebook, there's loads of courses out there, and the minute you start Googling it, you're just going to get bombarded with ads for all sorts of stuff. And there is a digital marketing course called CXL, just the letters CXL. They had a digital marketing course that was really good for me when I started, and it covers a range of different things. But actually, there's just, unfortunately, no substitute for experience. It's kind of like with policing. I think maybe it's just life, but when somebody comes out of what used to be police training college, I don't know what they do now, but when somebody comes out of police training college, they've had loads and loads of training, but they're pretty useless. At that point, they can maybe do really basic stuff, but they need to go out and get experience. And digital marketing's exactly the same. You're just constantly coming up against problems that you have to then research and overcome. And a guy that works in our business is the most experienced guy with Google advertising and getting tracking working correctly, because that's an absolute minefield with Google advertising, is getting tracking. And you need the tracking because you need to know if you spend £1 how many you're getting out, because if you're getting less out than you're putting in, then your campaign's not working. And he's been doing it for 8 to 10 years, something like that, on a really, really high level. But then Google will change something. They'll change something on the platform, or iOS 14 will come out where that just makes everything more difficult. And all of a sudden he's got a load of learning to do. So you never stop. So my advice for somebody who was looking to get in would be to, yes, get learning and get reading and take your courses, but there's no substitute for just diving in and getting it done. There's a really good guy on Facebook called Ben Heath who runs a company called Lead Guru. He puts out loads of content around Facebook advertising that, I think it's probably better content for people who are looking to they're looking to advance their Facebook advertising rather than start from scratch, because all of his subjects are really, really niched. I'm doing a presentation in a couple of days. If people have a look on my LinkedIn or the business's Facebook page, I'm doing a presentation for a company called BigVoo, which is, how to get started with Facebook advertising. And the
is that going to be recorded, Jamie?
I think it is, and it will be hosted on BigVoo's page. But yeah, it's a live workshop Thursday at 5 p.m. So there's loads of stuff out there, free resources and things. But ultimately, you can do all the learning in the world, but the reality is you need to dive in and get really cross at the platforms to learn it all properly.
Yeah, that definitely happens. Like I said, the iOS 14 as well. That was that's been interesting. So yeah, it's
in the air,
yeah, absolutely. If people are sort of teetering on the edge of maybe following a bit of a passion, or they've got a business idea, but they've got no idea which direction to go in, or whether it's even got legs, what advice and guidance would you give anyone?
Just entertain the fact that it's possible. For a start, you would be so surprised in some of the businesses that have been created just in the Shift to Success community. A guy that always inspires me is he started a lawn care business. So he started out and he wanted to be a men's mental health coach because he's gone through his own battles, and he realized actually it's not really for him. And he did a lawn care course, invested a lot of money in buying a van and all the tools and equipment that he needed, and he's doing really, really well now. He's doing really, really well, and he just spends all his days out in the open green spaces, and he just gives people lush green lawns. It's the simplest business idea, but it makes him happy. It gives him the lifestyle that he wants and a really, really good income. So just explore the idea, and don't just think about a business idea, think about a business for the idea. So any business, you need to generate leads, you need your own marketing, you're going to need your own website, you're going to need all of this side of things. Alex Seery has a really good free Facebook group. I think it's called Business Help and Support for Excellent Serving Police Officers, something like that, if you Google something along those lines. And he puts in loads of business advice, and it's a group that you can go and you can ask questions and you'll get answers to those questions. So that's a good way to flesh it out. And then about how you can actually make it work around your police schedule. And I think what a lot of cops struggle with is, they're doing the overtime and they're doing shifts. And then even when they do have a day off, they're absolutely exhausted. They almost just need to, I remember doing like 3-4 night shifts in a row, and you get kept on because you nicked a drink driver at 5 a.m. and the queue outside custody is 4 hours bloody long and all that sort of crap. And the next day it's like, well, I want to work on my stuff now. You can't, you're exhausted. And I think if you are thinking of developing a business alongside your day job, you're going to have to be selfish. You're going to have to put yourself first and draw a line under the overtime. And I know it pays, and this is the other trouble, a lot of cops bake their overtime into their lifestyle. So a lot of cops are like, well, I need to earn 10 hours of overtime or 20 hours of overtime a month to cover my outgoings. And it's like, well, you need to adjust your lifestyle outgoings so it can be covered by your basic income, if possible. Obviously, with it, not everybody, is in a fortunate position to be able to do that. But a lot of people do have fat that they can trim from their budget in order to make that happen. And you just need to have a longer term vision, because they might be thinking, well, I can't afford to lose a few £100s a month off my overtime budget. And it's like, well, I can tell you that there is a sergeant along the South Coast who is an LGBT sort of women's empowerment coach, and she'll earn thousands when she earns coaching clients. So you just short-term pain, long-term gain. And you just need to have that long-term vision, because a business will always spit out more than a job. Well, not always. It has the potential to spit more out than a job. And also with a business, I think what people don't really fully appreciate is that you're building an asset that you can potentially go on and sell. Because people have always said to me, what about the pension? What you can do when you get old? And I've said, well, I'm building a business. The business is the asset. If you systemize it correctly, you get a great team, you have long-term contracts. So, somebody can come in and they can say, well, what is the value of all your contracts over the next 12 months? You can say, well, that is X. What intellectual property do you have? That's Y. What team have you got? We've got these people, they've stayed for this long. There's an inherent value in that that will exceed a lump sum payment quite easily. I was speaking to a business owner just yesterday, had a web design in business that employed 40 people, and he sold it for 10 times his annual profit margin. Now, I don't know what that figure was, but I do know that he had spent the last 3 weeks in the Seychelles and then a week immediately afterwards in Cyprus on a 40-foot boat. So I can imagine it was a tidy sum. And I know he turned up for my meeting with a blooming in a Aston Martin. So he's done very well.
Is he happy, Jamie?
I think he was very happy on the boat in Cyprus. Yeah, I certainly would be. He ran that business for 20 years, and he said 10 years of it was a lifestyle business where he just wanted to raise his family and he wanted that work-life balance to be spot on. And then when his kids got older and sort of didn't need as much of his investment all the time, or didn't want as much of his time investment, he started to grow it. So he took 10 years to grow it to selling it for multiple millions, and that's what's possible.
That's exciting, isn't it? It really is. I think the other key here as well is investing in yourself, investing in the right information as well, and don't try and reinvent the wheel. If you can follow a proven path, and people have been there and done it before you, then and it's the same whether it's through yourself or through Alex or some of the career stuff that I do, obviously. And it's that why try and reinvent the wheel, or why try and go it alone? But
Exactly.
it is so important to invest in yourself as well, and yeah, just take a bit of a punt without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. And people look at the figure that is in front of them and don't and maybe that's our fault. If Alex said to me was £3,600 and I was like, that's a lot. If he'd have asked me one question, what's your average sale per customer? And I'd have said, well, it's about £3,500 back then. He'd have gone, well, you just need to make one sale and you're square. And I'd have gone, oh, you're right. Yeah, let's go. And it's the same
as
with,
well, isn't it? Sorry, go on. You go. Big pun.
I was going to say it's the same with finding a job. If police officers, we write CVs and stuff, and we talk in very policey terminology, and we can't see how our skills are transferable. Whereas actually, if you went and saw a career coach, somebody who could say, actually, this is how you need to structure your CV. Actually, these are the types of jobs that are going to be really interesting. Because somebody might think, well, all I've ever done has been a custody sergeant for the last 20 years. They're institutionalized and they're thinking, what else can I do? Whereas actually negotiation, sales, because they're always selling, to people, whatever the ideas is or whatever, process, team working, communication, all of it is all there. Managing a suite, a facility, that sort of thing. It's all there. They've got so many more skills, and actually paying somebody a little bit of money. It's finding good people, I think. It's the trust thing. It's like, I don't think people mind paying the money. I think they can see the value. It's having the trust in the right individual.
Yeah, without a doubt. Another thing I want to do as well is just say thank you. Obviously, you and I jumped on a call a week or so ago as well. You very kindly offered to give us a bit of help and support with regards to, obviously the stuff that we're doing in Blue Light Levers as well. And it was a great conversation. It was so clear that you really, really know your stuff. And
Thank you. Yeah.
So, hugely grateful for that as well. So thanks for that, mate. It was great getting some time with you as well. So thank you for that.
Anytime.
Mate, if people want to connect with you and contact, if they are interested either in the work that you're doing specifically with Lilac James and the path that you took, or maybe sort of, getting some work, getting some guidance and support through Alex or whatever it might be, what's the best way of contacting, connecting with you?
So I think LinkedIn probably. If you just find me, Jamie Stenton, on LinkedIn, send me a connection request. You can then message me on LinkedIn any questions that you have. I have cops and ex-cops reach out to me all the time with questions. Even some of them asking me for sort of like CV and board advice still. Now I don't have as much free time as I did when I was in the job because I'm focused on the business now. But it's always great to sort of make some connections. And, if you do need that business advice, I'd squarely point you in the direction of Alex Seery, because he's doing some great things over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Mate, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Really insightful and some great advice and guidance there as well. So brilliant talking to you. Look forward to catching up again soon.
Cool. All right. Cheers, Andy.
So huge thanks to Jamie. Some really great insight and advice and guidance there. So hugely grateful. Thank you, Jamie. If you like what you've heard, then don't forget you can leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And what it does, it just really helps to get this out there and let other cops and emergency services workers know that the podcast is available to them. The doors to the Academy are now open. I haven't made a big song and dance about it. I've just literally opened the doors. It's been closed for 3 months and as a bit of a proof of concept, and it's just got better and better. We've had some amazing success stories as well. So if you're looking for live calls, live guidance and support, and the opportunity to speak live and direct to other cops and subject matter experts, then the Academy is going to be the place for you. So you can find out more by going to bluelightlevers.com/academy. Thanks as always for listening. It means a huge amount to me. And massive thanks as always to Sam from Right Roll Audio. And look forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now.